I was sitting alone at my dining room table enjoying a peaceful dinner while watching the sunset paint my beach villa's windows golden when the doorbell rang. Through the glass, I saw my parents standing there with suitcases flanked by my sister Amanda, her husband Todd, and their twin daughters. They pushed inside without invitation, dropping luggage in my entryway like they owned the place. During our tense conversation over reheated pasta, Amanda suddenly looked me dead in the eye and announced, "I want breakfast ready at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Todd gets up early and likes everything prepared perfectly. As the host, Harold, it's your responsibility to accommodate your guests." The next morning, my alarm buzzed at 5:30. I stumbled into my kitchen, still processing what had happened the night before. Amanda had somehow turned my quiet family home into her personal hotel, and I was apparently the unpaid staff. I started brewing coffee and scrambling eggs, trying to piece together how a simple family visit had become this nightmare. Amanda appeared in my kitchen doorway at exactly 6:15, already dressed and holding a neatly typed document. "Harold, I've prepared a schedule for our stay," she said, handing me what looked like a corporate memo. "Breakfast needs to be ready by 6 sharp daily. Lunch at noon. Dinner at 7. I've also listed the specific brands of orange juice Todd prefers, and the exact temperature he likes his coffee." I stared at the paper in disbelief. "Amanda, this is my house. I didn't agree to run a restaurant for you." "Don't be dramatic," she replied, opening my refrigerator and frowning at its contents. "Family helps family. Todd works very hard in pharmaceutical sales, and he needs proper nutrition to maintain his energy levels. These eggs are completely wrong, by the way. He only eats organic cage-free from chickens fed a vegetarian diet." Todd entered wearing my bathrobe, which he'd apparently taken from my bedroom without asking. "The thread count on those guest sheets is unacceptable," he announced. "I need at least 800 thread count Egyptian cotton. Amanda, add that to Harold's shopping list." "Shopping list?" I asked. Amanda was already rearranging my spice cabinet. "Well, obviously, we can't eat the food you normally keep here. I'll need you to pick up proper groceries. Todd has very specific dietary requirements due to his gluten sensitivity and his CrossFit training regimen." My parents emerged from the guest room looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. Dad gave me an apologetic shrug, while Mom busied herself with the coffee pot, clearly trying to avoid the tension. Amanda's 8-year-old daughters, Emma and Ella, had apparently turned my living room into their personal playground. They'd moved my leather furniture into a fort configuration, and were jumping from my coffee table to my couch, their shoes leaving muddy prints on the white upholstery I'd spent months selecting. "Girls, be careful," I said, moving toward them. "They're fine," Amanda snapped. "Children need space to express themselves. This furniture is far too formal anyway, very unwelcoming for a family environment." I watched in horror as Emma knocked over my collection of vintage photography books, sending them cascading across the hardwood floor. When I moved to pick them up, Todd stepped in front of me. "Let the kids play, Harold. You're way too uptight about material possessions, it's just stuff." Amanda was now completely reorganizing my kitchen cabinets. "This layout makes no sense," she muttered, tossing my imported coffee beans into the trash. "Who needs 12 different types of specialty coffee? Todd only drinks medium roast, preferably Folgers." "Those beans cost $40 a pound," I protested. "Exactly the kind of wasteful spending that shows you need better financial management," Amanda replied. "Todd has an MBA, you know. He could help you budget more responsibly." The morning continued with Amanda giving me increasingly specific instructions about meal preparation, household maintenance, and entertainment options for her family. She'd somehow transformed from my younger sister into a demanding hotel manager, treating my home like a luxury resort where she was the paying customer. By 10 a.m., I'd already made 3 trips to different grocery stores to find Todd's preferred brand of protein powder and Amanda's specific type of gluten-free bread. When I returned with bags of expensive organic products, I found Amanda on my deck talking loudly on her phone. "Oh yes, the villa is absolutely gorgeous," she was saying. "Oceanfront views, private beach access gourmet kitchen. We're staying here for several days." I stood in my own doorway holding groceries I'd just spent $300 purchasing for uninvited guests, listening to my sister describe my home to her friends like she owned it. That's when Amanda turned to me with a bright smile and handed me a receipt. "Harold, I almost forgot. I ordered some additional groceries online for delivery this afternoon. Premium steaks for dinner tomorrow, organic vegetables, artisanal cheeses. The total comes to $412. Just transfer the money to my account when you get a chance." I looked at the receipt for groceries I hadn't requested for meals I hadn't agreed to cook for guests who'd invited themselves into my home. "You want me to pay you back for food you ordered to eat at my house?" "Well, yes," Amanda said, as if this were perfectly logical. "These are groceries for your guests, as the host food expenses are your responsibility." Todd appeared beside her nodding seriously. "It's basic hospitality etiquette, Harold. When you invite people to stay, you provide for their needs." "I didn't invite anyone," I said quietly. Amanda's expression hardened. "Are you saying we're not welcome here? After everything our family has been through, Mom and Dad drove the 6 hours to see you, and this is how you treat them." Before I could respond, Amanda's phone rang again. "Oh, perfect timing," she said, answering brightly. "Jennifer." "Yes, we're at the beach house right now. Actually, funny you should call. I was thinking it would be lovely to have everyone over for dinner tomorrow night. Harold makes the most amazing seafood pasta." I stood frozen as Amanda planned a dinner party at my house for 12 people without consulting me while simultaneously billing me for the groceries. This wasn't a family visit anymore. This was a complete takeover of my life. The next morning, after another 5:30 wake-up call to prepare Todd's specific breakfast requirements, I drove to 3 different specialty stores to find the exact ingredients Amanda had demanded. When I returned 2 hours later, loaded down with bags of expensive organic produce and artisanal breads, I heard familiar voices coming from my deck. I walked through my sliding glass door to find Amanda conducting what appeared to be a virtual tour for someone on her laptop. She was holding the device at arm's length, slowly panning across my oceanfront view, while speaking in an enthusiastic tour guide voice. "And this is the private deck area," Amanda was saying. "As you can see, we have unobstructed ocean views, direct beach access, and enough seating for large groups. The outdoor kitchen area is perfect for entertaining." I set down the grocery bags and moved closer, trying to understand what was happening. "The master suite is absolutely stunning," Amanda continued now, walking toward my bedroom with her laptop. "King-size bed, private bathroom with a soaking tub, and this incredible walk-in closet. Perfect for a romantic getaway." "Amanda, what are you doing?" I asked. She held up one finger to silence me while continuing her presentation. "The property sleeps up to 8 guests comfortably with 3 full bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms. We also have a fully equipped gourmet kitchen and a formal dining room that seats 12. I listened in growing disbelief as my sister gave a complete real estate tour of my home to strangers on the internet. "Hold on just one moment," Amanda said to her laptop audience, then turned to me. "Harold, you're interrupting. I'm showing the property to some potential guests." "Potential guests." Todd emerged from my bathroom carrying a stack of my personal toiletries. "We're moving these to the guest bathroom," he announced. "The master suite should obviously go to the family with children. It's much more practical." I watched Todd relocate my belongings to the smaller bathroom down the hall as if he were the property manager and I was a displaced tenant. "This is my bedroom," I said. "Temporarily," Amanda replied, then returned her attention to the laptop. "Sorry about that interruption. Where were we?" "Oh yes, the amenities. We have high-speed internet throughout the property, premium cable television, and a state-of-the-art sound system." Over the next hour, I discovered that Amanda had spent the morning photographing every room of my house and posting the images on multiple social media platforms. Her Instagram story showed a series of perfectly staged photos of my living spaces, each tagged with captions like "Our Family Beach Resort" and "Private Villa Getaway." Her Facebook posts were even more elaborate, featuring professional quality images of my kitchen bedrooms and outdoor spaces, accompanied by detailed descriptions of amenities and local attractions. The posts were getting dozens of likes and comments from friends expressing envy and asking for booking information. "Amanda, why are you posting pictures of my house online?" She looked at me with genuine confusion. "I'm sharing our vacation with friends. Isn't that what social media is for? But you're making it sound like you own this place." "Well, it is a family property, isn't it?" Amanda said. "Mom and Dad helped you with the down payment years ago. That makes it partially theirs, which makes it partially mine." I stared at her in shock. My parents had given me a graduation gift of $5,000 8 years ago, which I'd used as part of my down payment on a house that cost me $400,000. In Amanda's mind, this apparently translated to shared ownership of my property. Todd was now rearranging furniture in my living room to create what he called better traffic flow for guests. He'd moved my dining table against the wall and repositioned my couch to face away from the ocean view I'd specifically oriented it toward. "Much more functional," Todd declared. "You had this set up like a private residence instead of a hospitality space." Amanda's phone had been ringing constantly throughout the morning, with calls from friends who'd seen her social media posts. I overheard her conversations as she described the family villa and gave detailed information about local restaurants, beach activities, and shopping options. "Oh, you should definitely come visit," Amanda was saying to someone. "We have plenty of space, and Harold loves having guests. He's an amazing host, very accommodating." During lunch, which I'd prepared according to another detailed list of Todd's dietary requirements, Amanda's phone rang again. This time she put it on speaker. "Amanda, those photos of your beach house are incredible," a woman's voice gushed. "My husband and I have been looking for a romantic getaway spot. Is it available for rent?" I nearly choked on my sandwich. "Well, that's an interesting question," Amanda said, glancing at me with calculating eyes. "Harold Jennifer is asking about availability for a weekend rental. What do you think?" "I think this is my private home where I live," I said firmly. Amanda laughed as if I'd made a joke. "Harold's being modest. Jennifer, let me call you back in a few minutes." After hanging up, Amanda turned to me with obvious excitement. "Harold, do you realize what an opportunity this could be? Your house is absolutely perfect for vacation rentals. The location, the amenities, the space. We could make serious money. Well, obviously, I'd handle the business side," Amanda explained. "Marketing, bookings, guest relations. You'd handle the operational aspects. Cleaning, maintenance, guest services." Todd nodded enthusiastically. "It's brilliant. Harold's been wasting this property's potential by just living here. The rental income could be substantial." I looked around my dining room where Todd had stacked my personal books and magazines to make room for what he called neutral reading materials, more appropriate for guests. Amanda was already making notes on her phone about property improvements that would increase rental appeal. "I'm not turning my home into a business," I said. "Don't be short-sighted," Amanda replied. "Jennifer and her husband would pay at least $300 per night for this place. That's over $2,000 for a week-long stay. Multiply that by the number of weekends in a year plus holiday premiums, and you're looking at significant income." Todd was photographing my wine collection with his phone. "We'd need to lock up the expensive alcohol, obviously. Can't trust strangers with premium bottles." As the afternoon progressed, Amanda fielded more calls from friends asking about visiting the family resort. I realized she'd been systematically marketing my home to her entire social network, positioning herself as the booking agent and me as the facilities manager. But the final shock came that evening when I overheard Amanda talking to someone while I was cleaning up dinner dishes. "The beautiful thing is that Harold is already here full-time to handle everything," she was saying. "Guest services, housekeeping, maintenance. He's very dedicated to ensuring visitor satisfaction. We've been running this as a family operation for several months now, and the reviews have been outstanding." I stood in my kitchen holding my own dinner plates, listening to my sister tell strangers that I was the hired help at my own home, and that she'd been operating a business from my property for months. The casual confidence in her voice made it clear this wasn't a spontaneous idea. This was a carefully planned operation, and I was just beginning to understand how deep it went. I woke up the next morning to the sound of power tools coming from my living room. I rushed downstairs to find Todd assembling some kind of wooden furniture, while Amanda directed the operation with a clipboard in hand. "What is this?" I asked, staring at what appeared to be a reception desk taking shape in front of my bookshelf. "Guest registration station," Amanda replied matter-of-factly. "Todd picked it up yesterday while you were shopping. We need a proper check-in area for visitors." Todd looked up from his work. "This is just temporary until we can install something more professional. I'm thinking granite countertop, maybe some built-in storage for guest information packets." I watched in disbelief as they transformed my living space into what looked like a hotel lobby. Amanda was laminating colorful sheets of paper that turned out to be rate cards and local activity guides. "Amanda, this has gone too far. You cannot run a business from my house." She looked genuinely surprised by my objection. "Harold, we're helping you maximize your property's potential. Do you have any idea how much money you've been leaving on the table by just living here?" Todd had moved on to installing hooks on my wall for what he called guest key management. Without asking permission, he was drilling holes in my freshly painted walls and hanging a small wooden board with numbered hooks. "The key is professional presentation," Todd explained. "Guests need to feel like they're getting premium service from the moment they arrive." Amanda opened a folder and pulled out what looked like architectural drawings. "I've been researching local permits for small hospitality businesses. The zoning in this area is actually quite flexible for family-run operations." I stared at detailed floor plans of my house marked with proposed modifications. Amanda had sketched plans for converting my home office into additional guest space, adding a kitchenette to my garage, and installing a hot tub on my deck. "You want to build a hot tub on my deck?" "Todd already got estimates," Amanda said, handing me professional contractor quotes. "It's a surprisingly reasonable investment, and it would easily pay for itself in increased nightly rates." The quotes totaled over $15,000 for a luxury spa installation, complete with professional landscaping and expanded electrical service. According to the paperwork, someone had already scheduled a site consultation for Friday morning. "Who authorized this consultation?" Todd stopped his drilling. "I did. As property co-manager, I have authority to evaluate improvement opportunities." "Co-manager?" Amanda showed me another laminated document that appeared to be some kind of business agreement. "I drafted a partnership structure that gives you 60% ownership since you provide the property, while Todd and I handle operations and business development for 40% combined." I read through what looked like a legitimate legal contract, complete with terms for profit sharing, operational responsibilities, and decision-making authority. Amanda had somehow created an entire business framework around my home without my knowledge or consent. This is insane. I never agreed to any partnership. Don't think of it as giving up control, Amanda said soothingly. Think of it as gaining business partners who can help you succeed. Todd has extensive experience in sales and customer relationship management. My parents chose that moment to emerge from their bedroom, looking uncomfortable but still silent about the increasingly bizarre situation. Dad paused to examine Todd's wall modifications, while Mom studied Amanda's rate cards. "These prices seem reasonable," Mom said quietly. "Much less expensive than the hotels near the beach." Dad nodded. "Might be nice to help other families enjoy this beautiful location." I realized Amanda had been working on my parents behind the scenes, convincing them that turning my home into a commercial operation was somehow a generous community service rather than a violation of my privacy and property rights. Amanda's phone rang and she answered with obvious excitement. "Beach Villa Rentals. This is Amanda speaking. How can I help you plan your perfect getaway?" I listened in horror as my sister took what sounded like an actual booking, discussing dates, pricing, and amenities with someone who believed they were calling a legitimate vacation rental business. "Wonderful. We have availability for the first weekend in August. That'll be 3 nights at $250 per night, plus a $100 cleaning fee. We'll need a 50% deposit to hold your reservation." After hanging up, Amanda turned to me with a triumphant smile. "Our first official booking, the Hendersons, are coming from Denver for their anniversary celebration. You cannot book strangers to stay in my house." Todd looked up from hanging a small whiteboard labeled "Guest Reservations" on my wall. "Harold, you need to think bigger picture here. This booking alone will generate $850 in revenue for one weekend." Amanda was already entering information into what appeared to be a professional reservation system on her laptop. "I've set up accounts with all the major booking platforms. Airbnb, VRBO, Hotels.com. We should start seeing regular bookings within a few weeks once our listings go live." I stared at my sister creating online advertisements for my personal residence, while my brother-in-law installed business equipment in my living room, and my parents nodded approvingly at the transformation of their son's home into a commercial enterprise. "Amanda, I want you to cancel that booking immediately." Her expression hardened. "Harold, the Hendersons are counting on us for their anniversary weekend. Would you really disappoint a couple celebrating 25 years of marriage just because you're having second thoughts about a perfectly reasonable business arrangement?" Todd added. "Plus, we've already collected their deposit. Canceling now would require refunding their money, which would be a significant financial loss." I felt trapped by their circular logic where every step forward created new obligations that made backing out seem impossible or cruel. Amanda had somehow maneuvered me into a position where protecting my own home required disappointing innocent strangers who'd been misled about the nature of our arrangement. But the real shock came that afternoon when Amanda's book club arrived for their scheduled meeting. Instead of the casual gathering, I'd expected 12 women entered my home with notebooks, cameras, and obvious excitement about seeing a luxury vacation rental property. Amanda introduced me as our property manager, Harold, and proceeded to give a complete tour of my house while explaining the family business model and discussing expansion plans. The women asked detailed questions about booking procedures, seasonal rates, and local attractions, clearly believing they were visiting a legitimate hospitality operation. "This is absolutely charming," one woman said, photographing my bedroom. "My sister would love to stay here for her birthday weekend." Another woman was already pulling out her phone. "Amanda, can I book the third weekend in September? My book club would love to have our retreat here." I stood in my own living room watching strangers plan future stays in my home, while Amanda collected contact information and discussed group rates for multi-day bookings. The casual ease with which she'd transformed my private space into a public business was both impressive and terrifying. By the time the book club left, Amanda had collected preliminary interest for over a dozen future bookings, representing thousands of dollars in potential revenue that I'd never agreed to pursue and didn't want to manage. "See how easy this is," Amanda said, counting business cards from interested potential guests. "The demand is absolutely there. We just need to formalize our operations and start delivering professional service." Todd was already making notes about operational improvements needed to handle increased guest volume. "We'll need commercial-grade linens, professional cleaning services, and probably a property management software system." As I looked around my living room, now equipped with a reception desk reservation calendar and guest information display, I realized Amanda wasn't just visiting my home, or even borrowing it. She was systematically taking it over one business decision at a time while positioning me as an employee in the operation, rather than the owner of the property. The most unsettling part was how reasonable she made it all sound, as if converting someone's private residence into a commercial hotel, without their explicit consent, was a natural evolution of family hospitality, rather than a fundamental violation of boundaries and property rights. I woke up at dawn to the sound of construction equipment in my driveway. I looked out my bedroom window to see a contractor's truck parked next to my mailbox and two men unloading a small excavator. I threw on clothes and rushed outside to find Todd directing the workers toward my backyard. "Stop!" I called out. "What's going on here?" Todd waved dismissively. "Hot tub installation, remember? I moved up the timeline since we have those guests coming next weekend." I never authorized any hot tub installation. One of the contractors, a middle-aged man with clipboard, approached me. "Are you the homeowner? We need to verify the installation location and get your signature on the work order." I looked at the paperwork, which showed detailed plans for excavating my deck, running new electrical service, and installing a 6-person spa with surrounding stonework. The total cost was $18,000, and according to the contract, payment was due upon completion. Todd, who's paying for this, "Well, it's a business investment," he replied. "The cost will be covered by increased booking revenue, basic entrepreneurial financing." I turned to the contractor. "I need you to stop work immediately. I didn't authorize this project." The contractor looked confused. "Sir, we have a signed work order and a 50% deposit already paid. Your brother-in-law said you were expecting us." Todd pulled out his phone and showed me what appeared to be a legitimate contract with my signature at the bottom. "Harold, you signed this yesterday evening. Don't you remember?" I stared at a document I'd never seen before with a signature that looked like mine, but that I definitely hadn't written. "This is forged." "Don't be ridiculous," Amanda said, appearing behind me in her bathrobe. "You were very excited about the spa edition yesterday. You said it would be perfect for romantic weekend packages." The contractors were looking increasingly uncomfortable with the family dispute unfolding in front of them. "Look, folks, we need to know whether to proceed or pack up. We've got other jobs scheduled this week." Todd stepped forward authoritatively. "Proceed as planned. This is just pre-project nervousness. Harold gets anxious about big decisions." I watched the workers begin marking my deck for excavation, while Amanda and Todd retreated inside to avoid further discussion. I followed them into my kitchen, where I discovered Amanda had rearranged my entire space overnight. All my personal dishes and cookware had been replaced with plain white restaurant-style plates and commercial cooking equipment. My collection of ceramic bowls from local artisans was stacked in boxes marked "Personal Items Storage." "Where is my stuff?" "I moved your personal things to make room for guest-appropriate items," Amanda explained. The kitchen needs to look professional and neutral. Your eclectic collection was too personal for a rental property. Todd was installing new cabinet hardware that looked like hotel bathroom fixtures. We're upgrading to commercial-grade materials throughout. Much more durable for high-volume use. I opened my refrigerator to find it stocked entirely with generic institutional food items. My specialty cheeses, craft beers, and gourmet ingredients had been replaced with bulk quantities of basic groceries that looked like they came from a restaurant supply warehouse. You threw away my food. We donated it to charity, Amanda said virtuously. No point in wasting good food, but guests expect simple, familiar options. Todd researched the most popular breakfast items for vacation rentals. I walked through my house discovering systematic changes throughout. My artwork had been removed from the walls and replaced with generic coastal prints that looked like they came from a chain hotel. My books had been sorted into boxes with only a small selection of beach reading paperbacks remaining on the shelves. In my living room, Todd had installed a flat-screen television where my reading chair used to be angled for optimal viewing from the new furniture arrangement he'd created. My personal photographs had been replaced with stock images of local landmarks. This place is starting to look properly commercial, Todd declared with satisfaction. Much more appealing to potential guests than all that personal clutter. Amanda was on her phone with someone discussing what sounded like furniture rental services. We need everything delivered by Friday morning, she was saying. Complete living room set, dining room furniture, and bedroom accessories. The existing items are too residential for our needs. I listened to my sister arranging to replace my carefully chosen furniture with generic rental pieces, while contractors destroyed my deck outside. The noise of the excavator was punctuated by periodic crashes, as the workers removed sections of the custom decking I'd installed myself 3 years earlier. Amanda, you need to stop this immediately. Cancel the furniture order and tell those workers to stop. She covered her phone with her hand. Harold, we have paying guests arriving in 4 days. Everything needs to be perfect for their anniversary weekend. You wouldn't want bad reviews on our first official booking, would you? Todd was now installing a lockbox by my front door, the kind used by real estate agents and rental property managers. Guests need to be able to check in without depending on personal service, he explained. This gives them independence while reducing our labor costs. I realized that Amanda and Todd weren't just changing my house's appearance. They were systematically removing every trace of my personal life from the property. The place where I'd lived for 8 years was being transformed into an anonymous rental space that looked like it had never been someone's home. The most shocking discovery came when I went to my home office to call a lawyer. The room had been completely emptied. My desk, computer files, and business equipment were gone. The space had been repainted and furnished with 2 twin beds and a small dresser. Where is my office? Amanda appeared behind me, carrying fresh linens. We converted it to a children's room, much more practical for family bookings. Your work stuff is in the garage. I found my professional life packed into cardboard boxes, stacked between lawn equipment and holiday decorations. My computer was wrapped in a moving blanket sitting on my workbench next to paint cans and gardening tools. You moved my office to the garage. Todd joined us carrying what appeared to be a commercial coffee machine. Temporary relocation while we optimize the indoor space for guest comfort. You can always work from coffee shops when you need internet access. I stared at my displaced life while listening to contractors install an expensive spa in my backyard and watching my sister hang children's artwork on the walls of what had been my workspace that morning. The speed and thoroughness of the transformation was breathtaking. By noon, my house looked like a vacation rental property that had never been a personal residence. Every trace of my individual taste, professional life, and personal history had been removed or relocated to storage areas. In its place was a generic but attractive space that could have been anywhere on the coast. Amanda was photographing the changes for what she called updated marketing materials. She moved through the rooms with her camera, capturing professional-looking images of neutral furniture and impersonal decorations, while outside workers installed a spa that would permanently alter my property's structure. "These photos are going to be amazing for our online listings," she said with obvious excitement. "The place looks so much more spacious and welcoming now that it's not cluttered with personal items." I stood in my own living room, no longer recognizing the space I'd called home for nearly a decade, listening to my sister describe my personal belongings as clutter, while strangers installed expensive commercial equipment I'd never wanted and couldn't afford. The final insult came when Amanda handed me a bill for the property improvements, including furniture rental, commercial equipment, professional photography, and contractor services. The total exceeded $30,000. "Don't worry," she said cheerfully. "These are startup costs that will pay for themselves within the first 6 months of operation." Todd did the financial projections. I looked at invoices for transforming my home into a business I'd never agreed to start, while listening to contractors irreversibly modify my property for commercial use I'd never authorized. In less than 24 hours, Amanda had systematically dismantled my life and rebuilt it according to her own vision, all while presenting the destruction as improvement and the invasion as assistance. I returned from a desperate trip to the hardware store to buy new locks for my own house, only to discover my key no longer worked. I stood at my front door fumbling with the lock for several minutes before realizing someone had changed it while I was gone. I rang the doorbell of my own home and waited. Todd answered, flanked by 2 men I'd never seen before, wearing security company uniforms. "Harold, there you are," Todd said with artificial concern. "We need to talk." "Why doesn't my key work?" One of the security guards, a broad-shouldered man with a clipboard, stepped forward. "Sir, I need to ask you to remain calm while we sort out this situation." "What situation? This is my house." Todd exchanged glances with the security guard. "Harold, we've been discussing your recent behavior with some professionals, and there are concerns about your mental stability." I stared at him in disbelief. "My mental stability?" Amanda appeared behind Todd, holding a manila envelope and wearing an expression of practiced sympathy. "Harold, we love you, but your reaction to our family business venture has been concerning. The anger, the irrational resistance to positive changes, the paranoid accusations about forged documents." The security guard consulted his clipboard. "Sir, we've received reports that you've been exhibiting erratic behavior, making threats regarding property damage, and interfering with legitimate business operations." I looked around at my own front porch where I was being treated as a suspicious intruder by hired security, while my family positioned me as mentally unstable. "Amanda, what is this?" She handed me the manila envelope with obvious reluctance. "Harold, this is so difficult for all of us, but we can't let you continue disrupting the business or distressing our guests." Inside the envelope was a formal-looking document titled "Notice to Vacate," with my name and address clearly printed. According to the paperwork, I was being evicted from my own property for destructive interference with legitimate business operations and threatening behavior towards staff and guests. "This is insane. You can't evict me from my own house." The second security guard, a younger man with a stern expression, opened a folder and pulled out what appeared to be legal documents. "Sir, according to our records, you're listed as a former employee who was terminated for cause yesterday morning. The property owners have requested your immediate removal." "Property owners? I am the property owner." Amanda's voice took on a patient, therapeutic tone. "Harold, we understand this is difficult to process. Change is always hard. But you haven't been thinking clearly lately. The stress of running a hospitality business was obviously too much for you. Todd nodded gravely. We should have recognized the warning signs earlier. The irritability, the resistance to reasonable suggestions, the accusations about perfectly normal business procedures. I realized I was trapped in an elaborately constructed narrative where my objections to their takeover had been reframed as evidence of mental instability. Every time I'd protested their unauthorized changes to my property, they'd documented my resistance as symptoms of psychological problems. Let me speak to my parents. They're not here, Amanda said softly. This situation was very upsetting for them. They're staying at a hotel downtown until we can resolve your issues. The security guard checked his watch. Sir, you have 24 hours to collect your personal belongings. After that, any remaining items will be considered abandoned property. I looked at my own house where strangers were now controlling access, while my sister presented herself as the concerned family member dealing with a troubled relative. Through the windows, I could see the furniture rental truck delivering generic hotel-style furnishings to replace my personal belongings. Amanda, you know this is wrong. This is my home, I bought this house, I pay the mortgage. She sighed deeply, as if dealing with a confused patient. Harold, you're not remembering correctly. This has always been family property. Mom and Dad's investment. Todd's business planning my operational management. You were helping with day-to-day maintenance, but you were never the sole owner. The security guards were clearly uncomfortable with the family drama, but professionally committed to following their instructions. The older guard stepped closer with obvious sympathy. Sir, I understand this is emotional, but I need you to gather your belongings and vacate the premises peacefully. We don't want to involve law enforcement. I spent the next several hours loading my personal possessions into my car, while Amanda supervised with fake concern, and Todd documented everything with his phone camera. They'd reduced my entire life to whatever could fit in my vehicle, while the strangers moved commercial furniture into the spaces where I'd lived for 8 years. The most devastating moment came when I discovered they'd already changed my mail delivery to a post office box and updated the property's utility accounts to Todd's name. Amanda handed me a stack of forwarded mail and a utility deposit refund check, as if completing the administrative tasks of my eviction. We'll hold your remaining belongings in storage until you're feeling better, Amanda said, watching movers carry my artwork and books toward a rental truck. When you're ready to have a rational conversation about your future, we'll be here to support you. As I drove away from my own driveway for what appeared to be the last time I could see Amanda on the phone, presumably updating someone about the successful resolution of the employee problem. Todd was already removing the temporary business equipment, apparently preparing for the arrival of their first paying guests. I parked at the end of my street and called my parents' hotel only to discover they weren't registered there. When I finally reached Dad's cell phone, he sounded exhausted and defeated. Harold, we're staying with Cousin Robert until this gets sorted out. Amanda explained about your breakdown. She says you need professional help. Dad, Amanda is stealing my house. She's running a scam. Son, we saw the business documents, the partnership agreements, the financial projections. It all looked legitimate to us. Maybe you just got overwhelmed with the responsibility. I realized Amanda had been systematically undermining my credibility with our parents for weeks, presenting my resistance to her takeover as evidence of psychological instability, while positioning herself as the competent family member stepping in to manage a crisis. That night, I slept in my car outside my own property, watching strangers arrive for Amanda's first official booking. Through the windows, I could see the couple toasting their anniversary with wine from my former collection while Amanda played the gracious hostess in my former home. She'd successfully executed the most sophisticated theft I could imagine, stealing someone's entire life, while convincing everyone, including the victim's own family, that the theft was actually a rescue operation, designed to help a troubled person who couldn't manage his own affairs. For 2 weeks, I lived in my car and a cheap motel, while Amanda operated my home as a successful vacation rental business. Every morning, I watched new guests arrive for their luxury beach villa experience, while my sister collected hundreds of dollars in nightly fees from my former property. But I wasn't just wallowing in self-pity. I was gathering evidence and planning carefully. The first breakthrough came when I contacted the IRS about Amanda's unreported rental income. Running a commercial lodging business without proper licensing and tax documentation turned out to be a federal crime. The second break came from the contractors who'd installed the hot tub. When they hadn't been paid for their work, they started asking uncomfortable questions about who actually owned the property and who had authority to authorize $18,000 in improvements. I spent my days photographing Amanda's operation from public areas, documenting the constant stream of paying guests, and recording license plates of rental cars in my driveway. I also discovered that several of Amanda's online reviews mentioned concerning details about unauthorized charges and misleading property descriptions. But the real opportunity came when Amanda called me with an offer that revealed just how successful her theft had become. "Harold, I've been thinking about your situation," she said in her fake concerned voice. "We're doing so well with the rental business that we might have a position for you." "A position?" "Well, we need someone for property maintenance and guest services. Early morning setup cleaning between guests, basic groundskeeping. The pay would be $15 per hour, plus you could stay in the converted garage apartment. I listened to my sister offer me minimum wage employment, maintaining my own house while living in my own garage. The audacity was breathtaking, but it was also exactly the opportunity I'd been waiting for. "That's very generous," I said carefully. "When would I start?" "This weekend would be perfect. We have a high-end booking coming in and I want everything to be absolutely perfect. Todd will explain your duties and work schedule." 2 days later, I returned to my own property as hired help. Amanda greeted me at the door with a clipboard and a polo shirt embroidered with Beach Villa staff. "Harold, I'm so glad you are feeling better. This arrangement will be perfect for everyone." I spent that afternoon following Amanda around while she explained my job duties, preparing guest rooms, stocking amenities, maintaining the spa cleaning common areas, and being available for any guest needs that arose. She'd turned me into the janitor of my own home. "The most important thing is maintaining the illusion of luxury," Amanda explained. "Guests are paying premium prices for a premium experience. Your role is to remain invisible, while ensuring everything runs smoothly." That evening, I prepared an elaborate welcome dinner for Amanda's most expensive booking, yet a couple celebrating their 10th anniversary, who'd paid $800 per night for a 3-day stay. Amanda supervised my cooking while Todd set up the dining room with my former china and silver. "This needs to be perfect," Amanda stressed. "These guests are food bloggers with a large online following. Excellent reviews from them could really boost our reputation." As I cooked in my own kitchen, wearing a uniform while serving people in my own dining room, I reflected on the beautiful irony of Amanda's final triumph becoming the setup for her complete downfall. The dinner went flawlessly. The guests were delighted with the food, the service, and the overall experience. They complimented Amanda on her outstanding property management and praised the dedicated staff who'd made their evening special. After the guests retired to my former bedroom, Amanda, Todd, and my parents gathered in the living room to celebrate the successful evening. I served them coffee and dessert while they discussed expansion plans and profit projections. "Harold, you've really found your calling," Amanda said patronizingly. "You're much better suited to service work than property management. Less stressful for you." I smiled and nodded while serving coffee that contained a special ingredient I'd added during preparation. Nothing dangerous or permanent, just a harmless but powerful laxative that would take effect in about an hour. "Thank you for giving me this opportunity," I said sincerely. "I've learned so much about the hospitality business." While they enjoyed their enhanced coffee, I excused myself to make a phone call from the garage. The federal agents I'd been working with for the past week confirmed they'd received my final evidence package and would execute search warrants first thing in the morning. "Your sister really documented everything," Agent Martinez had told me earlier. Tax evasion, mail fraud, identity theft, commercial operation without licensing, plus the forged signatures on construction contracts. This is a comprehensive case. I'd also been working with the local zoning enforcement office, the health department, and the state tax authority. Amanda's illegal business operation violated numerous regulations, and the financial penalties alone would exceed the total amount she'd stolen from me. The beauty of my plan was that Amanda had been so confident in her success that she'd documented everything. Her social media posts, online listings, financial records, and guest communications provided a complete trail of evidence for multiple criminal violations. As Amanda and Todd began experiencing the effects of their special coffee rushing frequently to the bathroom with obvious distress, I calmly uploaded the final pieces of documentation to the federal investigation database. The anniversary couple were awakened by the commotion of Amanda's family running frantically between bedrooms and bathrooms. Through the guest room door, I could hear them discussing whether to cut their stay short due to what appeared to be a stomach flu outbreak among the staff. By dawn, Amanda was too sick to get out of bed. Todd was groaning in the converted office, and my parents were wondering if they'd been poisoned by dinner. The guests checked out early, demanding a full refund and threatening negative reviews about the unsanitary conditions and sick staff who'd obviously contaminated their luxury experience. That's when Agent Martinez arrived with her team and a stack of federal search warrants. "Amanda Harrison," Agent Martinez said, showing her badge to my sister, who was pale and weak from her night of intestinal distress. "You're under arrest for mail fraud, tax evasion, and operating an unlicensed commercial business." I watched from the driveway as federal agents photographed Amanda's illegal business operation, seized her computers and financial records, and began interviewing the anniversary guests about the fraudulent booking practices. Todd tried to run, but made it only halfway across the backyard before Agent Martinez's partner tackled him next to the hot tub he'd illegally installed with forged authorization. The IRS agents were particularly interested in Amanda's unreported rental income, which totaled over $40,000 in just 6 weeks of operation. The state licensing board wanted to discuss her commercial food service without health department permits. The zoning enforcement officers were documenting the unauthorized conversion of residential property for business use. But my favorite moment came when Agent Martinez handed me back the keys to my own house. "Mr. Harrison, you're free to reclaim your property. We'll need to keep some financial records as evidence, but everything else is yours." I stood in my front doorway watching Amanda and Todd being loaded into federal vehicles, while my parents apologized profusely for believing their elaborate lies. The guests they'd defrauded were providing statements to investigators. The contractors they'd stiffed were filing liens against Amanda's assets. Amanda's sophisticated theft had collapsed in spectacular fashion, taking her criminal enterprise and her freedom with it. Her attempt to steal my life had ultimately provided law enforcement with enough evidence to charge her with multiple felonies. As the federal vehicles pulled away, I realized that Amanda's greatest weakness had been her own arrogance. She'd been so confident in her manipulation that she'd documented every crime-posted evidence on social media, and involved so many victims that exposure was inevitable. The house was a disaster, but it was my disaster again. And unlike Amanda, I understood the difference between home and business, between family and exploitation, between hospitality and theft. 6 months later, I stood on my restored deck, watching the sunrise over the ocean, while drinking coffee from my own favorite mug in my own kitchen. The federal case against Amanda and Todd had concluded with guilty pleas on multiple charges, including tax evasion, mail fraud, and illegal commercial operation. Amanda received 18 months in federal prison and owed over $70,000 in fines, penalties, and restitution. Todd got 12 months and was banned from operating any hospitality business for 5 years. The IRS seizure of their assets had covered most of my restoration costs. My parents had driven down the previous weekend to help me reinstall my artwork and rearrange furniture back to its original configuration. Dad spent 2 days repairing the deck damage from the illegally installed hot tub, while Mom helped me sort through my belongings that had been stored during Amanda's occupation. "We should have spoken up sooner," Mom said while hanging my photography collection in the living room. "When things started feeling wrong, we just didn't want to cause family drama." Dad nodded from where he was reinstalling my original light fixtures. Amanda made it sound so reasonable at first. Helping you succeed, maximizing the property's potential. We didn't realize she was stealing your life piece by piece. The restoration had taken months, but removing every trace of Amanda's commercial operation had been deeply satisfying. I'd burned the generic hotel artwork, donated the rental furniture to charity, and had the locks changed twice for good measure. The most rewarding part was reconnecting with my neighbors who'd been documenting Amanda's illegal business operation, and were happy to provide evidence to federal investigators. Mrs. Chen next door had photographed every commercial vehicle that violated our residential neighborhood rules. Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez across the street had recorded noise complaints and traffic violations. "We knew something wasn't right," Mrs. Chen had told me. "Your house suddenly became a hotel with strangers coming and going at all hours, but we didn't want to interfere in family business." The neighborhood association had even sent me a formal letter of support, expressing gratitude that I'd reported the illegal commercial operation that was violating our community's residential character. I'd also reconnected with genuine friendships that Amanda's chaos had disrupted. My old college roommate, Jake, visited for a weekend, and we spent hours on the deck discussing how family manipulation can be more devastating than stranger fraud, because it exploits the trust and loyalty that should be sacred. "The hardest part must have been realizing your own sister was capable of that level of deception," Jake observed. "Actually, the hardest part was watching my parents believe her lies about my mental health," I replied. "She almost convinced them I was having a breakdown when I was actually just defending my own property." The legal proceedings had revealed the full scope of Amanda's planning. Federal investigators found evidence that she'd been researching vacation rental scams for over a year, studying property law, and identifying family members with valuable assets. I wasn't her first victim. She'd run smaller versions of the scheme on cousins and friends. But there was also an unexpected positive outcome. During the investigation, I'd worked closely with Agent Martinez and her team, providing detailed documentation and analysis of white-collar fraud patterns. She'd suggested I consider consulting work with federal agencies on family financial exploitation cases. "You have a unique perspective on how these schemes operate," Agent Martinez had explained. "And you're excellent at organizing evidence and explaining complex financial manipulation to juries." I'd started doing part-time consulting with the FBI's white-collar crime division, helping other families who'd been victimized by relatives running elaborate property fraud schemes. It turned out to be both financially rewarding and emotionally healing to help others recover from similar betrayals. The work also gave me a sense of purpose beyond just reclaiming my own life. Every case I helped build meant another criminal family member faced consequences for exploiting relatives' trust and generosity. My relationship with my parents had slowly healed as they processed the reality of Amanda's manipulation and the extent of her lies. They'd been genuinely deceived by sophisticated psychological manipulation, and their guilt about believing her was punishment enough. We should have trusted our own son over convincing paperwork and emotional manipulation, Dad had said during one of our reconciliation conversations. Amanda was very good at making her theft sound like business opportunity. Mom added, "She made us feel like supporting you meant enabling your supposed problems. We thought we were helping by going along with her version of events." Standing on my deck with my coffee, I reflected on the deeper lesson Amanda had inadvertently taught me. The people who claim to want to help you improve your life are sometimes the most dangerous because they disguise exploitation as assistance and theft as partnership. True family supports your independence and respects your boundaries. True business partners don't forge your signature or change your locks. True help doesn't require you to surrender control of your own life to people who claim to know better than you do. I also learned that sometimes the most sophisticated criminals are family members who understand your weaknesses and can exploit your loyalty. Amanda's scheme was more devastating than stranger fraud because she used my love for family as the weapon to destroy my security. But perhaps most importantly, I learned that you can't protect yourself from betrayal by avoiding trust entirely. The solution isn't to suspect everyone. It's to recognize the warning signs of exploitation disguised as assistance, and to act decisively when people who claim to love you start treating you like property they can manage. As I finished my coffee and headed inside to start my day, I felt grateful for the hard-won peace of living in my own space, surrounded by my own belongings, making my own decisions about my own life. The sanctuary of home isn't just about the physical space. It's about the security of knowing that no one else has the authority to change your life without your consent. Amanda had tried to steal my home, my identity, and my family relationships. But in the end, her attempted theft had only strengthened my appreciation for the things that truly mattered. Genuine relationships built on respect rather than manipulation. Honest work that doesn't require exploiting others, and the simple but profound satisfaction of being master of your own space. The federal prison system would give Amanda plenty of time to reflect on whether her criminal scheme had been worth 18 months of freedom and $70,000 in consequences. Meanwhile, I would wake up every morning in my own bed, in my own house, living my own life according to my own values. And that difference between freedom and incarceration, between integrity and fraud, between respecting others and exploiting them was the most valuable lesson of all. Have you ever experienced family members who crossed boundaries under the guise of helping you? How did you handle situations where people who claimed to love you actually tried to control or exploit you? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this story if it resonated with your own experiences. Subscribe for more stories about standing up to family manipulation and protecting yourself from people who disguise selfishness as generosity. Share this with anyone who might need encouragement to defend their own boundaries against relatives who don't respect their independence. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your home and your life belong to you, no matter what anyone else claims about family obligations or business opportunities.